Greetings, everyone. This is Lou Salsa with important news from the UUCC Stewardship Committee. We are setting sail for 2021. Soon, we will be underway. Please stay alert. Each of us can contribute. Each of us can advance and sustain our mission to build community within and without, search and grow spiritually, and promote justice in action in the community. A successful stewardship campaign strengthens the foundation of our spiritual home and promotes social justice in the greater Northeast Ohio community. Please answer the call to stewardship. It has never been more important for our community to come together. It's all hands on deck.
Hi, everybody. David Cantor here, host of UUCC Zoom In Live. I've got a question for you this morning. What do this and this and this and this have in common? Well, if you guessed Peggy Lagagni, you'd be right. If you guessed something else, you might still be right. I just don't know what you're talking about, though. Many of us know Peggy as one of our worship associates, who's on her own unique spiritual quest and shares a lot of her thoughts with us on many of our Sunday services. But boy, it's Peggy an awful lot more than that. Peggy's somebody who spent years fighting on the male-dominated financial instruments trading floors, and she's as comfortable with needlepoint as she is with tuck point, as comfortable with the needle as she is with a power saw. And in fact, if you asked her husband, Steve Dell, he might tell you that maybe she's a little bit too comfortable with that power instrument. But you'd have to ask Steve about that. Anyway, Peggy's going to be our next guest on UUCC Zoom In Live this coming Monday, March the 8th, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Will Barrett will be co-hosting with me. And of course, we'll have the Jack Ullman comedy moment. We hope to see you then. Take care now. Bye.
As a congregation, we have come together in these hallowed halls to learn, to worship, and for fellowship, anchored on a mission of community, spirituality, and justice.
I've recognized that being part of a church calls me to my better self. There I know I can feed my soul, expand my mind, find ways to express my creativity and use my skills, explore small groups where I can find friends and contribute to the greater good, and know that it's a good place for my money.
And since the pandemic started, I have had time to join the choir virtually, so I'm also participating in the choir. And we get up on Sunday and watch service on YouTube together. And it feels like an important ritual to be there at that consistent time every Sunday, knowing that many of you are also watching the service at the same time. Also participate in one of the virtual cafes pretty consistently, and an online covenant group. And I've enjoyed getting to know some people much better virtually than I ever did in the before times.
Our mission of community, spirituality, and justice has not wavered, thanks to givers like you.
Kevin, why do you give to UUCC?
Nothing's free. And when I think about the services and the connectedness that we have in our community, bringing us all together, there's a price to pay for it. And so I look at that as being as important as putting food on the table and shelter on us as well. And so those are the reasons why I give to the church.
UUCC gives us so much. Let's give back. Stewardship takes all of us. Help support UUCC as it supports you and the larger community.
Good morning. I wanted to welcome everyone to worship this week from our sanctuary. You know, that word sanctuary, it has so many meanings. It's meant to be a place that's special. It's certainly a place that's safe and protected. It describes a place you're supposed to feel like you belong. And it's also, of course, a place that's holy. For us, it's a place that's been empty for the past year at this point. So it's a place of our memories and also our aspirations. It's a place that we long to get back to, like a home that we haven't been able to return to in months. But today's worship is about preparing for what this return means, and especially what it means to return after the events that have shaped the world since we've been away from this sanctuary. Today is about preparing ourselves for the reality that things aren't going to be going back to the way they were. Instead, the doors of our community are going to open for us into a brave new world. And so I want to challenge us to start thinking about what we can offer the communities that we serve in Cleveland and in all of Northeast Ohio. Because the new normal we are going to enter is going to be one full of need, of confusion, of loneliness, and a deep sense of spiritual need. I don't have to tell all of you that we have something very special here at UUCC, something that makes this room unique, and the people who gather here remarkable. And it is precisely because of that that we should ask ourselves now at this moment, when we get ready to open the doors, who are we going to be ready to invite inside? And what are we going to carry out with us from here into the needy world? Welcome to worship.
Our chalice represents us, the community, and the effect that we have on our world. The flame can sustain us with its warmth, illuminate us with its light, and it can break down our world with heat and combustion, only to create room for new growth. We can be whatever we wish to be, honoring our deepest hopes and our highest aspirations. And to begin, all it takes is a spark.
Take them onward, where
used to come together around this table when we met in person to share our joys and concerns, the things that were beautiful in our lives, and the things that brought us sorrow. I share these pebbles today symbolically for all of us, because I know there are joys in people's lives that need to be celebrated. There are birthdays, maybe births, anniversaries, and just plain old good days that deserve to be celebrated. I know that there are difficult times for people. People tired of this pandemic, tired of the isolation, frightened by the events in our nation's capital, and just having a hard time. I place this last pebble into our bowl with a hope that you'll remember you are not alone, that if you reach out, someone surely will be there to celebrate with or to help comfort you, whether you're celebrating a joy or contending with a sorrow today.
So if you lived in London in the 1890s, you were certain that the future would be covered in horse droppings. You would have known and dealt with, pardon the phrase, but a crap-covered world for your entire life, as the streets were full of carriages and carts, all of which were pulled by horses. And while manure had been collected and sold to farms for years, the advent of some chemical fertilizers in the late 1800s had cratered the price of manure. There was also no formal street cleaning, and of course there was very little grass. So this stuff just built up and built up. Reportedly, one newspaper said that by the 1950s, London would be 9 feet deep in horse manure. Typhoid and other diseases borne by the flies that filled the streets was completely normal. The prospect of the future of London was so bad that it actually helped to invent the field of urban planning. But, as this story is usually told, something extraordinary happened. There were so many issues surrounding the manure-filled future of London, but weirdly, the problem fixed itself. In 1950, there was not 9 feet of manure in London, and very soon after the 1890s, there was no horse manure to speak of at all. What was the solution? The automobile. London and its horse-filled future never came. This story is a frequently told one, and it's usually told by tech-obsessed people, like an Elon Musk or someone like that. And they use it to get to the moral of the story that confirms, how they see the world. Innovations make old problems obsolete. But of course, that is a insanely short-sighted way to look at this story, because it doesn't take any really, intelligent point of view to realize that cars have not turned out to be the miracle solution that seemed to people whose biggest problem was horse manure. Instead, I think that the lesson to this story is all about how we try and problem solve for a future that, in reality, we can never quite imagine. The reality is the world around us and its problems are always changing and always evolving. So the lesson here is about realizing how we have to engage with the world and its problems, being ready to change and adapt as the circumstances change, so that we're always ready to enter a new paradigm. I couldn't find a better analogy for this than that from football. If you're a quarterback, you don't throw the ball where the person is, you throw the ball where they're going to be. You always have to take that change into account. And that lesson is important because our solutions can be sometimes even worse than our problems. The rest of the story about the London manure crisis isn't usually told, but it's very important. Because the 1950s did come to London, and that London wasn't full of manure. Instead, it was full of cars and trucks and coal-powered electrical generators, and it was filled with smog. If you've ever watched the TV show The Crown, you can see a version of what happened. Periods of smog and pollution so dense that you could hardly navigate the streets. It's said that during these years, almost 4,000 Londoners died every year because of smog-related illnesses. So the problem wasn't fixed. A new problem was hatched. And those new problems required new solutions. And the lesson is that looking forward 50 years down the road, neither you nor I nor anyone truly has the right idea about what our problems will be. As our more than a year pandemic and a year of social change is drawing to a close, the problems and concerns that we had before are not going to be the problems and concerns that we find when we re-enter the world. The gears of the globe are beginning to click back into place as vaccines are shared, administered, institutions like schools and businesses come back online. And the fact is that the world is going to be a very different place. Now, I have all the faith in the world that UUCC has a voice and a message that those who are emerging from quarantine and isolation will need to hear. But how we engage that world, it may need to be radically different. We might have to do something so counterintuitive, like we might have to be more in person, but also at the same time more digital. Perhaps we need to engage different groups in ways that we haven't before. And I'm sure that we need to present ourselves in all kinds of places so that people know who we are. So the question we should be asking ourselves at this point is not what is the solution for the future, but are we ready and steeled enough to face it?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from?
Mystery.
What are we?
Life is where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Life is where are we going?
Mystery.
Mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Hey, Selena, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I just wanted to tell the congregation that you have been with Impact since the 7th grade, the summer, and 8th grade. So why do you come to Impact?
Well, I come to Impact to have fun with people that I don't really get to see and to connect and learn new things.
Okay. So what would you be doing if Impact didn't exist?
I'd probably be babysitting.
I would at school, we don't have as much freedom, so I have more freedom here, and I can be more comfortable around my peers.
What would you do in the afternoons if you were not here, if Impact didn't exist?
Well, I'd be in my room, bored, alone.
Okay, I understand. And how is Impact different from the time at school?
Impact is different because it actually tells you what you need for the future ahead of you. It tells you what you need to be successful for, all of that.
If a 6th grade is coming up from Woodbury, would you tell them to come to Impact? Would you tell them yes, no, or you like the program?
Yes, I would tell them they should come to Impact. It prepares you through like interviews and what would you like stuff that they would not teach you in the 6th and 7th grade.
What would you tell 6th graders that's coming up about Impact?
I will tell them to come to Impact because you will learn more about yourself, life skills, and you will have fun.
Oh.
Everything that I've done in Impact, I'm going to remember.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet of you. What would you tell a 6th grader this year about Impact?
Well, I'll tell them this place is the best. You should so go here. And even to learn about your future, you can go here. Well, I've learned what inspiring and wisdom and courage words are. We've learned about Black history, and we're starting to learn about women history.
Okay, Selena. So what have you learned while you were part of the Impact program?
I learned more about Black history and new words that we learned, like respect and will, and I'm getting more into women history.
Okay. Are there any kids you only see here when you're at Impact?
Yes.
Okay. And is that because they come or?
Because our school's so big and I don't get to see everybody.
Okay, Lila, if you could change anything about Impact, what would it be?
I will have I would add field trips, and I would, even though the pandemic, I would have we would have big spaces on the bus, as if we were going to school and coming home and coming to Impact.
If you could change anything about Impact, what would it be?
Well, Impact's just too good.
Good.
I don't want to change anything.
Oh, well, if you ever want to add anything, you're more than welcome.
I don't want to change anything about Impact. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
orchards growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are.
Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care.
Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not alone.
Each week we come together as a people. Together we share stories, love, aspiration. We also share our bounty in ways that express our religious UU values. May this important ritual of sharing abundance remind us that making our world better is a task best shared.
Our global scripture today comes from the path-breaking novel by Octavia Butler, The Parable of the Sower. The child in each of us knows paradise. Paradise is home. Home as it was, or home as it should have been. Paradise is one's own place, one's own people, one's own world. Knowing and known, perhaps even loving and loved. Yet every child is cast from paradise into growth and new community, into vast, ongoing change. So if you don't know it, Octavia Butler's extraordinary story in The Parable of the Sower is all about home and the loss of home. Cast from paradise is the phrase she uses for this. And it's a pretty ironic thing to be reading in the midst of our pandemic. For most of her stories, her characters are literally fleeing from one home in the hopes of finding another. They fantasize all about the reliability of home, the safety of being at home. Their whole motivation is to find a place to land and to belong. But the leader of the band of travelers, Lauren Aldamina, her main character, she has ideas that challenge even those assumptions. She realizes what Heraclitus, the great pre-Socratic philosopher, had understood millennia ago, that the only thing in the world that is constant is change. So if paradise is consistency and safety and sameness, then the rest of the world around us is growth and evolution and change. I wanted to use this story to talk about where we are at as a community because I think our circumstances during this pandemic year are playing a little bit of a trick on us. For the past year, most of us have spent most of our time in our homes, and the kind of usual story that we tell one another is that we're sick of being inside and we can't wait for things to return to normal, but therein lies the trick. Because it feels like we've been hanging out at home with safety and comfort And that's led us to boredom and cabin fever. But in fact, this past year, our world has been completely unmade. And most of us don't feel safe and bored. We feel anxious and uncertain and alone. We don't recognize the world outside our doors, and the social and political landscape feels stranger and stranger than ever before. Our social decline into isolation and loneliness, this isn't news. It's been trending that way for decades. And it affects every social group, every class, every race. This is a struggle for all of us. But let me rephrase this state of affairs in a way that highlights things just a little bit differently. It's been trending this way for decades, and there has never been a more universal need for flourishing communities that allow people to find connection and familiarity and belonging. If you have hung on with us through our online worship this year, you have heard us as a community struggle to find ways to engage with one another, to keep in contact, and consider how fortunate you are to even be around for our struggles to find those things. And I say that because consider how many around us don't have the benefits of a place that even has that as its purpose. These people who don't have a place to belong that can help them shrug off the aloneness that so many of us struggle with. So, simply put, I think we are currently facing a challenge, but also an opportunity. And it's one that comes around only once in several generations. And I want to challenge us to seize this moment in order to find a way to imagine things in a whole new way, where our doors are even more open, and where we have the courage to make that audacious claim that being here in this community and being this community on purpose is one of the best things we can offer to this needy world. Because this place isn't only a place from which to do good, it is a good in itself. Or at least it can be. If we can be open and welcoming to every person as our principles indicate, it can be if we are prepared to jump into an uncertain and changing future, ready to meet whatever and whoever may come our way. Right now, this is the great deep breath before the plunge back into the world over the next however many months. Make no mistake, even if it takes until winter to come all the way back online, it's coming right at us. Unitarian Universalism has always been a haven for people, even a sanctuary, for those who have sought a place to belong without having to leave aspects of themselves outside the door. Now, those doors, they've been closed this year because of a global pandemic, but it's precisely because of that the time is now to recall what those doors mean and to redouble our efforts to ensure not only that they remain open to everyone, but also that everyone knows these doors are here for them, that this sanctuary can be their home too, and that we are ready to create a new community alongside new people from all kinds of backgrounds, with worship and learning and community that speaks to social needs and feeds social goods. It's a perfect time to think about this place not only as the place we all want to get back to, but as the thing we have that we can offer the world, a changing and changeable community for all people, the doors of which are wide open for anyone and everyone who would like to enter.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll
I close worship this morning with anonymous words from our gray hymnal, a well-worn expression of our most sincere intentions as Unitarian Universalists. May we be reminded here of our greatest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
We've cleared off the table, leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I've told you a story, tugged you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whoever you will. You can travel any country where your heart beats, and the Lord will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the life you leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some fall behind, some go in their own way and time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise children, some never do. You can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they give the same back to you. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whoever you will. You can travel any country where your heart beats, and the Lord will love you still. You can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can